This podcast is brought to you by members of the Portland community. Welcome to This Is Us Portland podcast, our local community conversation. We are the host, Mary Pont, Director of Youth Services, and Allison Behnke, Outreach Coordinator.
Our conversations will cover topics of interest and concern to all members of our community. We will be joined monthly by people who bring their voices of experience and knowledge to our roundtable. Topics of discussion will cover what deeply matters in our town of Portland.
I would like to welcome everybody back to our podcast, our This Is Us Portland Community Conversation. And today we have Jen Renk, the children's librarian, or the youth librarian. We're going to let her explain exactly the title of her job and what she does over at the library.
Okay, my official title, and I'm glad to be here today, is Supervisor of Youth Services. So that encompasses every age from newborns on up to age 18. So it's the children's department and the teen department, mainly responsible for the collection development, for the programming, for pretty much everything related to the library between those ages.
Excellent, Jen. How's summer going with all the kids coming out of school and heading over to the library with their parents and their families?
It's going great. I've been really encouraged this year by the number of families and kids coming into the library. Just this morning, I did a quick look at how many people we have registered for the library program, and I think that we're quickly going to surpass what we had last year. Our numbers are great. We've seen a lot of enthusiasm from the families and the kids. I had a mom tell me this morning her kids have never wanted to participate before, and this year they kept bugging her to come to the library, so I think we're going in a great direction.
Do you think that's because some of the families are spreading the news? That they're hearing more and more about what's happening at the library, and the kids are talking about it. That's got to be the kids are talking because they want to be where their friends are going if it's going to be a fun thing and fun activity.
Yeah, I like to think that is it. I think it makes a huge difference and I'm very grateful that the school system lets us come into the elementary and the intermediate schools and give our presentations directly to the kids, because I think there's a big difference between me sending an email home or sending a paper flyer home and being able to go in there and share my excitement about the summer programs. And I think that kind of spreads, and then they get excited and come home, and what parent doesn't want their kid excited to come to the library? So I think it's just been a great snowballed effect, but I hope it continues.
Are you finding that a lot of the parents that are coming in have been library users themselves?
I would say that's true, but I think that it also draws families that maybe aren't library users in. When we have things like the first grade field trip where all the first graders come in as part of their class field trip and get a library card and pick out a book, we'll have parents come in because their child has come home and talked about it and wants to go back to the library. And so it kind of draws the whole family in, that even if the library hadn't been on their radar, it brings new people in, which is great. And we have so many services for the whole family, so it's good exposure.
I think today, as summer starts and school ends, some of our families are already looking towards the beginning of the school year at the end of August. And we're here today to talk a little bit about how the library can help with kindergarten readiness and also other grades. So early literacy, I think one of the things that's really interesting to me is people's stories about how books and how reading and all those things really help our kids as they grow. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I definitely do think when you think about the library, you think about books, and that is the number one thing when you're looking at early literacy. That's what all the studies show. Read to your child. Read, read, read. You may get tired of reading the same book 17 times when they ask for it, but it's going to benefit them in the end. And someday, like me, you'll look back and you'll still be able to recite those books, and it'll kind of be a nice, comfortable memory for you. But definitely read to your kids. We have all sorts of reading materials and levels. We have a book list of 100 books that you should read to your child before kindergarten. That's based on things like vocabulary and word recognition and letter recognition. We have story times. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself here.
No, go ahead.
But our story times are great if you are able to make them. We have several during the day, and we do have an evening one on Wednesday nights, because it's so much more than stories. It's a lot of social interaction with their peers. It's listening. It's following directions. There's always a craft, so your child can learn and work on their fine motor skills. We have cutting and gluing and using writing instruments. All of those are things that your potential new teacher are going to be looking for your child to have when they get into kindergarten.
I can remember a while back when you had come to talk to our parents in previous programs, that you had explained to them that they don't necessarily have to read every single word in the story. That you just tell the story according to the pictures.
Yes.
That it makes it easy to start out with, especially when you have a 1 or 2 year old that doesn't know the words. So you can sort of keep them ahead of the game by just telling the story because of what's happening in the pictures. And that's just as important until they get the idea of telling that story, and then you can start using the words and pointing out the words.
Yes. Talking is another important early literacy school. That's probably the first one that your child will experience is talking. Just talk to your child about anything, because that's how they're getting their first exposure to words and letters and phonics. So having those conversations is important, not only from an early literacy standpoint, but also just for emotional needs. Just spending that time with your child is really important too. But yes, the picture walk is a great way to start off reading to your child. And not only is it good in that they're using their imagination and making up a story and thinking about sequentially what could happen next, but just for them even to learn that you open a book from the right to the left, turn the pages, book care, we don't eat our books, we don't throw our books. These are basic things, but somebody's got to teach them these things. So if you can do that early on, even better.
And I'm from the old school. There's something about holding the book in your hand. And I know that I've sat next to someone, I'm reading my book and they're reading their Kindle. And I'm still liking that feel of that book in my hand and turning those pages.
Yes.
And I know that it's not as important as it used to be. And I know that the library does have the ability to have online books, that you can get online books. But I think just coming to the library, the experience with the kids, bringing them into the library and checking it out. I said before we started today that I grew up with my mom working in the library. So I, at a very, very young age, came in to pick her up after she was finished and just enjoyed being in the library and doing the little pieces that she used to do in the olden days of stamping the little cards. Everything's computerized now, but just stamping the cards and alphabetizing everything and learning the ABCs by just flipping those cards and doing that. And then later on, my daughter had the advantage of coming for her Nana, and when she was very, very small, to come too.
Yeah.
And we're actually today sitting in the high school reference room of our old library, because we're here in our youth service area with the former Buck Library.
Yes.
Until it moved to the new Buck Library down the road.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because I remember playing library as a kid, and my kids certainly did it too. And it used to be the same thing. We would pretend to stamp the books, and now my kids sort of push it forward and they make the beep noise, because that's what libraries have become. Yeah.
Right. That's what libraries do. One of the things you mentioned, which is particularly interesting to me as an early childhood coordinator and working with young families in town, is the idea of emotional time, so social emotional time with your families and spending time together around books and around reading. One of the initiatives we've worked really hard with you on is the Story Walk down at the Portland Riverfront. And that's a project that really encompasses early literacy, family time, exercise, being out in nature, learning about your town and the river. We've been really, really, really lucky on that front. The next story to go in is actually The Kissing Hand, which is one of my kids' favorite stories, and means a lot to them, and is one of those that I'm sure when they're older they'll be able to recite. So that's something that will be useful for kindergarten readiness, and also some of our preschool families and even some older kids in terms of transition back into school. Just sad to think about.
I know. Yeah, no, I think the Story Walk is really one of the greatest things that I have seen in my couple of years working at the Portland Library. I love that you got that grant for us. That was a big thing, and you worked really hard to put that together, and I think that it's really been fantastic, so thank you for all of that. But definitely, if you have the time to go down to the riverfront property, the way the Story Walk works, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is that you follow a trail, and as you go along, there are posts with a page of the story in each one. So not only are you reading this book together, but Allie has made a lot of prompts to either have your child have a physical movement along with it or a social emotional prompt. So how do you think that the raccoon was feeling at this point in time. So all helpful things to sort of get your child ready for kindergarten. And as we know, it's about a little raccoon who has to be separated from his mom for a point in the day. And so it's very relatable for all of these families that have someone going to kindergarten and are a little bit nervous about it. It's a great story to read right before you go into kindergarten.
I know we talk about the kissing hand quite a lot, and it is a story that it keeps being brought up, that it's that rite of passage for the kids going into kindergarten.
Yes.
That it's
and
sort of easy. I'm not sure if it's easing the child comfort level or is it easing the mom's comfort level of saying that goodbye and putting them on the bus or dropping them at the door of the school. So I think it's a little bit of both. Sometimes it's the mom more than the child who might have been going to preschool and has already been away.
Right.
But it's still a big deal. Going to kindergarten is still a big deal.
It's a big deal. I remember it so clearly when my kids went. It is a big emotional day.
And I think everybody works at getting that day to be a big day.
Yeah.
That it is an exciting day in your life. And I still enjoy seeing people's pictures of that first day of kindergarten and the last day of kindergarten, that now they've gone on to the next thing.
Yeah.
That more and more of the families have shared. So it's a great experience for all of us to see that.
To wrap up today on this sunny day as we head into summer, I just want to say thank you for all the wonderful programs at the library. Early literacy is an important stage for kids, and the library is a great tool to be able to do it. So if there's anybody interested in doing activities, they should head down your way and see what's available. And I know Jen's door is always open. Always open.
Yep, I'm always happy to talk to anybody at any time. One last thing I want to mention, maybe not for those getting ready to go to kindergarten in the fall, but any siblings or anybody who's maybe a little bit farther down the road, is that we have a program called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, and you can come in at any time. Everything at the library is free. It's a free program. Where for every book that you read together, you can color a little circle on your caterpillar, and at certain milestones along the way, your child will get prizes for their reading. But studies show that if you've read 1,000 books by the time that you go to kindergarten, and it seems overwhelming, but some of those stories go pretty quickly, and it is very easy to do. I find we've had a lot of people complete the program successfully. But if you're interested in doing that sort of as a motivation to keep your early literacy moving, it's a great program.
I think that's a great idea, and we're certainly going to do everything we can to encourage families with their children to go to the library, as well as everyone to go to the library, because there's a lot of good positive things that happen there with a lot of programs that you have. So
yes.
Again, thank you so much for coming and talking with us today. And with that,
Enjoy your summer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Bye.
we hope you all have felt the energy around this table. I'm Mary Pont, Director of Portland Youth Services.
And I'm Allison Behnke, the Outreach Coordinator here for the town of Portland. We thank you for listening, and we look forward to joining you next month.